He is our vice chair, and ordinarily he would be here, but duties in the state has called him to stay there at least through today. But thank you for joining us as we kick off this meeting of the National Governors Association. I'm honored to serve as chair, and my term began last year. It'll continue through this summer, and it's one of the great honors I've had in public service to be chair of the NGA, an incredible organization that serves 55 governors of our states and territories with a couple of key missions, one of them being determining things that we can agree upon in a bipartisan way and presenting and advocating to Washington, D.C. in behalf of the governors on those issues. And then secondly, which now it's more important than ever, the governors develop and share policy innovation with each other. And the sharing of ideas is one of the great benefits of the NGA. This is our 114th winter meeting, one of two meetings that we gather together as a full body of governors. And this is particularly special because the last time we were together in person was in the winter of 2020. And that was here in Washington, D.C. But a lot has changed since our last meeting convening here in the nation's capital. Governors have had to lead in ways and meet challenges that were never previously encountered. And governors have proven themselves up to the test every step of the way. With the support of the National Governors Association, governors have been working with the federal government through two administrations to both protect our residents and to keep life moving and meaningful at the same time. As governor, we always look to the future, and education is a pathway to a stronger America. That is why, as chairman, I've chosen computer science education in the K through 12 framework as my initiative that I want to promote and work with my fellow governors to be successful in increasing access to computer science education across this country. This is a national security issue. With the advent of autonomous vehicles, with the drone delivery services that are coming soon, and with cybersecurity threats, we must have the training in computer science and cybersecurity, and that begins in our K through 12 education system. Because as a nation, we face an option here. Either we're going to fall behind in our technology development and our innovation, or we're simply going to acquire all of the talent from overseas. And the third option, which I endorse and which is the purpose of this initiative, is to say we're going to lead in the United States of America in training the talent for the digital age. And we can do that, and that is the purpose of this initiative. Arkansas has joined 3 states that require computer science credit to graduate from high school. We have also increased in a number of different ways our emphasis on computer science education. My goal later at the 11 o'clock convening of the NGA is to tell a longer story about how we did this, what more we can do as a nation, and some of the priorities that we ought to have as governors. But concentrating on computer science education gives our students digital literacy to match the digital age in which they live. It will make a difference in their lives. Very specifically, my goal is to see computer science being offered in every school, in every grade, to every student across this nation. That, of course, is the ultimate objective. And we, to accomplish this, will be having regional meetings this year, promoting the computer science education. It will be in Bentonville, Arkansas. In March, we'll go in May to Boston, Massachusetts. Governor Charlie Baker will be hosting us there and regionally promoting this. We've always been to Denver. In addition to the NGA's advocacy under my leadership of computer science education, we've had a great deal of success in other areas as well. One of them being the infrastructure bill that was passed on a bipartisan way. This was supported by the National Governors Association, and it goes back to 2019 when the NGA adopted principles for national infrastructure. So this is not something we just worked on this year, but we've been working on for many years, and we're delighted to have the success of the passage of that legislation. We've worked with the Treasury Department on details of the American Rescue Plan funds, pushing for flexibility to the states on the use of those funds, because states know what their needs are to the greatest extent of anyone. We were successful in encouraging the administration to lift some of the pandemic restrictions on cross-border travels, something our governors advocated for. And then the flexibility in the use of our National Guard, and we're grateful to the administration for making sure that that investment can be 100% reimbursed by FEMA as well. We concentrate on broadband access, on cybersecurity coordination and training. These are just a few of the things that we have worked for as an NGA. During this convening of the NGA, we'll be hearing from administration officials working on these specific areas of infrastructure investment. Obviously, we'll be dealing with the pandemic and the future investments to see where this coronavirus takes us next. Will be a topic of conversation, our computer science initiative. And we look forward always to meeting with the President, asking tough questions of him, but also hearing from the administration officials as to how we can partner better to make sure that the governors and our federal government work together for the good of our citizens. With that, I want to invite my friend Governor Jared Polis to come and for his remarks.
Thank you, Governor Hutchinson. We also, on behalf of Governor Phil Murphy, welcome everybody. Governor Murphy will likely be here tonight. Of course, we have a different standard of measuring weather in Colorado. When we have, 8 to 10 inches of snow in a day, we say time to hit the slopes. But we can sympathize when we have 2 or 3 feet in a day. That's when we start getting a little bit worried. And I know that there's a different preparation and different standards in different areas, and we hope that all of our northeastern governors can manage the blizzard, and we hope that many of them are able to join us, and I know that Governor Murphy intends to. I want to thank Governor Hutchinson for his work on computer science. What could be more important to the future, not just of Arkansas, not just of Colorado, but to our entire country, of being competitive around preparing the next generation of kids for the jobs of the future, so many of which touch areas of computer science. It's an exciting opportunity for America to catch up and implement best practices that we know work across the world, we know work in pockets in our own country, and instead seek to make them universal so that everybody has the opportunity to live up to their potential, and for many that includes a career in computer science. There's a lot of value in Republican and Democratic governors from across the country coming together, and it's been 2 years since we've had the opportunity to do that. We did it virtually last year, but for everybody, and we've all experienced those Zooms and conferences in this unprecedented time. We know there's something lost, and we know there's value in doing that, but there's even greater value in those informal conversations, coming together around the table, discussing common items of concern. And one thing that we find is that there's a lot more that unites us than divides us. It doesn't mean that every governor is going to agree on every issue. They won't, not even among those of the same party. But we all have a similar experience doing the best and fighting every day for our states. And we share a perspective that can be valuable to help inform federal policy making, to help make sure that the voice of governors is heard in the executive branch and the administration, hopefully giving us, as governors, the flexibility to make well-intended federal policy work, given the unique contours of our state. In this unprecedented time, there's been an elevated role that governors have played in pandemic response, and the lessons learned and the route out of this and the resources ahead are also an important part of the discussion, along with the implementation of the infrastructure bill, the workforce issues that states across the country are facing, supply chain issues, and there's a lot of value in us coming together just to discuss and agree where we can and advocate where we can on making lives better for our constituents. So welcome to the in-person NGA. We are excited to be here in Washington, D.C. It is the 114th Winter Conference, and we're really excited to kick it off. With that, we're happy to take some questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Governor. So for us to be here right now, we've had to prove that we were vaccinated and take a test. I'm wondering, you as governor from a Republican state, what do you think needs to be done? Is this the new normal for us, or how do we end this pandemic and proceed without having to do anything?
Well, first, we respect each jurisdiction, and so I have my vaccination, I've got my card, I've been tested, and so we are following the local rules out of respect, and of course that is a requirement. It's also, as we visit with the president, it's important that he is protected, and so no one is objecting to those requirements. In terms of where we are in the pandemic as a whole, in Arkansas, in my state, we moved beyond mandates a long time ago. And people know what to do. They're making decisions. We're increasing vaccination rates. We're working very hard to make sure we get through this and we, like I said, have life meaningful and productive. And I think we are getting very close. In Arkansas, our cases are going down, and that is good news for us. Jerry?
I think, there's something that's more important than, whether you have to show your card and where and when you have to wear a mask, and that's civility and respect. And that's an even greater and more important value than whatever risk reduction mechanism you might be using at any given time. I want to thank, in particular, the Republican governors and also the Democratic governors for showing respect of what the D.C. Rules are and following them. In our state, too, like Arkansas, we don't have these kinds of restrictions, but you know what? We respect those who do. If there's private businesses or nightclubs that want to be able to provide a safer environment and ensure that people are vaccinated or masked, they're certainly able to do that. And there's people that desire to have a lower risk. I mean, maybe you're a young person who wants to go out, but you're going to visit grandma next week. You want to make sure you limit your exposures a week or two prior to visiting your grandma, so as not to jeopardize your life. So the important thing is that people are empowered, people are informed, and of course, we show great respect to the risk tolerance of others.
Yes, right here.
Can you wait for the handheld, please? So we have questions on a microphone.
Governor, Ryan Tarnelli with Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Many Republican voters believe the 2020 presidential election was stolen from former President Trump or falsely believe that there's widespread voter fraud. How concerned are you about what that trend will mean for American democracy going forward?
Well, first of all, I don't believe the election was stolen, and I respect the results. They were challenged as need be, and the result is the fact that President Biden is in office. So it's about the future to me. Some of the states, which is their prerogative, have adjusted their election rules for both expanding voting access, but also to making sure that the votes have integrity. And so to me, it's all about the future. Anybody wants to talk about the last election is going to lose the next election. And so that's what I focus on. Yes, sir.
So, in terms of build back better, would the governors like to see something pass, and would the talk about scaling the build back, or are there any crucial priorities you would like to see in the plan?
Well, this is a great area where Democrats and Republican governors disagree, and I think there's a difference of philosophy as to whether that is needed. I think now it's going to be broken down perhaps into smaller portions, but with the passage of the infrastructure bill, with the passage of the ARPA funds that are at the states, we have a lot of resources in order to deal with the challenges of both the pandemic, but improving our infrastructure. So that's our focus, and so I suspect there's a big difference of view on that social spending program from the Democrat side versus the Republican side. Jared?
Yeah, whenever there's a legislative proposal like that moving through, an important one, whatever, Build Back Better, different chunks of it, I think the voice of NGA and the governors is important because it's generally aligned with saying maximize discretion for states and for governors. So while we aren't always going to agree on what should be done, whatever vehicle and whatever party and whatever policy is moving, we want to make sure it can work at the state level. So as language emerges, I would expect that we would be outspoken about giving governors and giving states discretion and an ability to use funds as best needed rather than being strictly dictated from Washington.
Over here, in the red.
Governors Jennifer Mizrahi Respectability Report. In your initiative specifically around computers, there has been dramatic change and progress in accessibility for people with disabilities to use computers. What are you doing in your initiative to ensure that students who are blind have access to screen reader accessible materials, that Zoom always is turning on captions in the classroom, and that people who need to use speech to text are able to use that, and that the schools are providing the right technologies? Likewise, the NGA had a huge initiative around disability employment, and congratulations, because it's the highest growth in labor force participation rate in the history of our country. I wondered if you can comment on assisted technology and job growth for people with disabilities. Thank you.
I think it's a great opportunity to improve the lives and productivity of those with disabilities. Whenever we can make digital access more available, it's a tool that those with disabilities can really improve their lives with. And so in Arkansas, we try to increase the employment opportunities for those with disabilities. You raised some very good points in terms of access to computers, to online education, to make sure that we don't forget about those that might need some assistance there. And so that needs to be a part of the effort. It was pointed out to me today that some of our online licensing requirements, our licensing requirements for different professions, they have in-person requirements versus online, and we want to make that more available. So that's something we're going to look at in Arkansas to make sure that's not a handicap or a difficulty for those with disabilities to getting the licenses and access to the services of the state. Sure. Next question.
Benjamin Freed with the States Group. Governor Hutchinson, you mentioned the infrastructure bill and how it aligned with a lot of priorities that the NGA laid out a few years ago. Specifically, in there's a lot of new money for broadband expansion. There's some money for cybersecurity assistance. Have you had any talks with the administration or with your staff about what you plan to use those funds for when you receive them, or how far they'll go?
The answer is yes. I've actually set up a commission in Arkansas that covers multiple agencies within the executive branch to start the planning process for the infrastructure money that will be coming. Mitch Landrieu with the administration, former mayor of New Orleans, I talked to him just the other day. He'll be speaking to the NGA, and I anticipate that the rules from Treasury will be coming out very soon. And so that's the first step in actually making firm decisions. But we've already started the planning process across agencies, and I think in some infrastructure projects we'll actually cross jurisdictional lines and then combine a project with another state, which I've had some meetings with other governors here about that. So the planning process is in gear, and today at the NGA we expect to really hone in on that issue and and get more specifics as to the flexibility the states have is in investing that important money for our future.
So your question informs what a lot of the discussion will be about. Certainly, we're hearing and meeting with Secretary Buttigieg, Mitch Landrieu. I think all of the states are extremely interested in how we can get the best bang for the buck with the federal infrastructure dollars. We also fully recognize, as Governor Hutchinson alluded to, the interjurisdictional nature of important transportation projects. And here in the Northeast, you're no stranger to that. I mean, you might be between 3 or 4 different states, in the course of a 45-minute drive. It's not quite to that extreme out our way. But nevertheless, that interstate component and the coordination across different jurisdictions is very important for the convenience of people.
Brandon Gillespie, Fox News Digital. In what ways do you feel you can work with the Biden administration to get some of the initiatives you mentioned accomplished while it's busy dealing with the inability to get its top agenda items passed to Congress? And has the president done enough to reach across the aisle in his first year?
Well, in terms of working with the administration, there's a long list of opportunities for us. Regardless of what happens in the future in terms of federal legislation, we already have ARPA funds that we're working with them, the administration, to deploy. In Arkansas, we'll have another $600 million coming in later this year just from ARPA funds. And then we have the infrastructure funds that we're working with them to make sure the states have the flexibility that's needed, which is an NGA priority. On the ongoing efforts with the pandemic, we have weekly calls with the administration in terms of hearing from the governors, what's working, what's not working. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but that is, America needs to understand that we are working together as leaders, federal branch to the state level, to get behind this pandemic, and we work together, and we're not going to let the fact that the presidents of the different parties stand in the way. The NGA, the governors have that genuine heart for solving the problems and working together. There's plenty of differences, there's plenty of ways that we can criticize, but there's a lot of areas that we can work together on, and that's the most important thing.
Sorry. This question for Governor Polis, Ryan Beckwith from Bloomberg News. Governor Polis, cryptocurrency advocates have long seen it as sort of a safe alternative, but the recent crash shows it may be tied to more traditional economic factors than people assumed. Given that state governments can't deficit spend during an economic downturn, does that present any risks to your proposal to accept state tax payments in crypto?
No, absolutely not. So we have an initiative in Colorado where we want to, and we don't have the time frame specified yet in terms of when we'll achieve this, but yes, we want to accept cryptocurrency for a variety of state services and payments. To be clear, the state would not hold any assets in crypto. Those would be instantly converted back into dollars when a transaction occurs. So, it's a valid point, obviously, on both the public and private side, to the extent you're engaging in transactions using crypto. Taking the speculative risk of holding the crypto is different than simply handling it for the purposes of the transaction. So, in the case of the public, the government would not be interested in participating in the speculative aspects, positive or negative. We would simply use it as a means of exchange for purposes of payment. In the private sector, for companies that have enabled transactions with crypto, they can make those decisions about if and when they hold any currency risk. It's really no different than international companies that take payments in a variety of currencies across the world. They all fluctuate. The dollar fluctuates in the global markets as well. So just like companies seek to, so should the public sector reduce risk through not holding assets in highly volatile currencies for any period of time.
This is a question for Governor Polis.
News organization.
I'm Ariel Gans from the Inside Climate News. So last week, mining company Sunnyside Gold Corporation and Kinross Gold settled to pay $45 million to the U.S. and state of Colorado to resolve mining-related contamination at the Bonita Peak Mining District Superfund site. Moving forward, how do you intend to keep mining companies accountable for their past mining operations at Superfund sites and ensure those sites are investigated and remediated?
So we have a broader So I'll get to that specifically in a moment, but there's a broader rulemaking occurring right now at our Colorado Oil and Gas Commission about bonding and insurance for oil and gas reclamation. This is the issue where there has been a lot of churn in companies that have leveraged themselves and gone belly up, others have taken over, et cetera. Then the public interest is in making sure that oil and gas mines are reclamated and not left abandoned, potentially to the detriment of local health. So we're working on the bondage and insurance issue to make sure that the resources are there regardless of what happens to a particular company to do that work. Now, those are not Superfund sites. These are distributed extraction sites, usually fairly small scale. With regard to larger and Superfund sites and the ongoing work that occurs in Colorado, we also have a strong interest in making sure that the funds are there when needed for reclamation in partnership with our federal partners, in partnership with any corporate successors, to make sure that areas can be restored to their best and highest use in a safe way.
That's great. Governors, thank you very much. We're out of time. And thank you all for members of the press for joining us today. And we look forward to hosting you at our plenary 1 and plenary 2 sessions today, later today. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask him.
Government executive.
Show up at events on most. So that was every year. Attend a Philadelphia event. I think it's a national holiday that is important to our state and nation. And I honor his legacy, and I'll continue that practice.
And any plans to have like in-person conversations with Secretary Buttigieg about the infrastructure plans? If so, what is going to be your message to him in securing funds for Arkansas?
Give us flexibility to manage those funds and to make sure that there's not any that the rules recognize that Arkansas is a right-to-work state, and we don't want any regulations that infringe upon that might impede upon our use of those funds in a right-to-work state.
Governor Hutchinson, update on the Annapolis Infrastructure Summit that you and Larry Hogan and Governor Wolf hosted. One of the issues they made was states, because there's no national infrastructure bank, states were willing to put their own state-level infrastructure banks or funds. Is there any update, and have they been talking about a regional bank like, Warner talked like Appalachia or Delta doing their own kind of infrastructure finance facility or bank? Has that been discussed, or is that being moved forward?
I'm sure that there's discussions, but if you're talking about an infrastructure bank that would...
to get private sector money, to get the private sector funds.
I think that's project by project, and so, in Arkansas, we have the ability to utilize private sector funds for accelerating an infrastructure project, but every state rules are different on that.
Yeah, because, there's like $25 billion waiting to invest in U.S. infrastructure that's sitting on the sidelines because we don't have a proper function. That's what Mark Warner had initially proposed, like Delta, Regional Authority of Appalachia. These people can start doing it, so private capital can get the leverage in the government bond issue. And as you said, these states, we're interstate connected.
We need to streamline it. We need to make that as an option. It doesn't work in every situation, but that should be an option.
All right, thank you.
Talked a lot about the American Rescue Plan.
How worried are you about folks falling through the cracks?